El Harachaman, O sweet God, we assemble now with our friends as darkness has fallen upon them. We raise our voices together to the source of life, asking for comfort and strength. Death has taken less from us. He has missed already the gifts of his generous heart, his mind, his sense of humor. They enriched our lives permanently. We need fortitude and courage when pain and loss assail us. May we find these in God and in each other. Let us find them too in loved ones, companions who do the work of humanity by binding up the wounds of the stricken. Who among us has not passed through trials and bereavements? Some bear fresh wounds in their hearts and feel more keenly the kinship of sorrow. Others whose days of mourning are more remote still recall the comfort that sympathy brings to sorrowing hearts. May our sharing of sorrow, our deeds of solace, and the words of our biblical tradition bring comfort today to the dear loved ones of our friend Les Levine. May these words endure, the words of the Psalms, the words of modern poetry, the words set to music eternally.
These words from Psalm 34, who among you loves life and the goodness of our days on earth? Turn away from negativity, create peace, and honor all that is good. Mi haish hechafetz haim Ohev yamim lirotov mi haish hechafetz chaim Ohev yamim lirotov Netzor leshon chameira usfatecha midaber mirma sur meira v'asetov bakesh shalom verotfehu mi haish hechafetz haim Ohev yamim lirotov mi haish hechafetz chaim Ohev yamim lirotov.
I invite you to join with me in the recitation of the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for the sake of his name. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen. Ata imadi, thou art with me. And that's what we wish today. That's what we pray for going forward. Lest that you be with us. Be with us now, eternally, always. I know that the faith of the psalmist is echoed today in the feeling expressed to me by Les's wonderful and devoted family. Ata imadi, thou art with them. Thank you to all of you who were able, under these strange, sheltered COVID-19 circumstances, to be with us, and so many more of you who are watching, listening now through the miracle of live stream technology. Family invites you, if you wish to honor Les's memory, to do so in the coming days with a gift, if you wish, of tzedakah to In Motion or to Fairmount Temple. They invite you, of course, to continue to celebrate Les's life, to watch that game tonight, to laugh at every funny commercial, to be sure that you cheer for a good game, and for the Browns to eventually be in it. American essayist and short story writer Joseph Epstein once wrote, "We do not choose to be born. We do not choose our parents. We do not choose the historical epoch of a country or our birth. We do not, most of us, choose to die. But within all of this realm of choicelessness, we do choose how to live. Courageously or with cowardice, honorably or dishonorably, with purpose or in drift. We decide what is important and what is trivial, what to do and what to refuse, and no matter how indifferent the universe may be to our choices and decisions, they are ours to make. We decide. We choose. And so our lives are formed." Over the recent days, as we all saw the many public tributes offered to Les Levine, a highly accomplished public persona, I kept thinking about the choices Les made in his lifetime, and just how incredible it is that someone who colleagues and competitors, those with whom he had clashed next to those who he had mentored and encouraged over the past 50 years in broadcasting and sports journalism, these folks knew in Les the same qualities on a public scale that were true to those closest to him. He was the same man to them all, a source of protection, goodness, pride in his place on earth, and no regrets that he didn't speak of and demonstrate during his life to those who were holding his hands the entire distance of his run. What a treasure that is to know for those most immediately affected by his being missing on this first Super Bowl Sunday since there were ever Super Bowls. For Les's beloved wife, Allison, for his children, Jamie and her Elan, Jeremy and his Melissa, Adam, Mara and her Victor, for his brothers and sisters-in-law, Stuart and Leslie, Billy and Nancy, for his grandchildren, Noah, Vida, Mela, Leah, Mallory. The singular one known to them all as Papa Les is a man whose life choices, until his final breath, reflect courage, purpose, truth, reason, and an awesome sense of humor. Indeed, Les would want me to say today that of all the funerals I have ever conducted in my entire career, this funeral is the most recent one. I'm Rob Nosenchuk. I'm Les and Allison Levine's rabbi. We certainly saw one another at Shabbat services and holidays, and on more than one of what he called lucrative speaking engagements, which always meant that one of the temples or Jewish community organizations had asked him to speak on a Sunday morning in front of some Jews smearing cream cheese on their bagels. But with me, Les did the same thing he has been doing to win people over since he grew up. He figured out the soft spots in the person he was encountering, the things that were personally touching, and he let you know he remembered those things. Think about all of the ads that strategy generated, the radio and TV interviews that it turned, the friendships that technique made endure. Last spring, I was on medical leave when Les called me on my cell phone. I thought he might be calling to wish me a good comeback from recent surgery. Instead, when I answered it, I kidded him that it must have been a butt dial. Turned out it was neither. The date was April 6, 2020, and news had just hit the wire that Al Kaline, a legendary player from my hometown Detroit Tigers, had died. So instead of talking about either of the health challenges we were fighting, or about anything related to Temple, or about the COVID-19 virus that everyone was talking about shutting down Ohio, instead, we just gabbed for 20 minutes or so about Mr. Tiger. He told me about meeting the Hall of Famer when Kaline began a second career as a sports broadcaster. I told him about the time that Kaline had come to speak to my Little League team. And so many of you watching today or here in this room know that Les did not need to make sports talk out of every conversation. Far from it. But that day, he knew that's what I needed to talk about. That's what stands out to me. That's Les Levine. Kind, personal, warm, his energy directed at helping you feel listened to and lifted up. 7 years ago, his producer from back at WHK, Pat McCabe, lost his 92-year-old mother. Pat didn't have siblings, and his dad had died when he was a young man. It was a Friday afternoon in Painesville during blizzard conditions, when anyone could have been forgiven for just skipping the drive altogether, when Les arrived promptly at Pat's door, shrugged off the weather, and sat with his friend looking at pictures and sharing his strength. These are the memories today to celebrate of a mensch whose legacy can warm us on what is going to be a brutally cold Cleveland February Sunday. In recent days, the Cavs have called him a remarkable human being, a resounding presence. The CSU Vikings describe him as an incredible broadcaster, an even better person. The Browns have praised the tremendous contribution he made to the greater Cleveland sports community and his consistently going out of his way to help others. But most important to him, his family felt comforted. If it hasn't been said yet today, I'll be the first one to say that if it were not a global pandemic, we'd have filled 4 chapels this size, with hundreds of people from here to Columbus and back who admired Les. He is someone who filled the too narrow span of his life with optimism, the kind that we all intend to capture when we feel it, but Les seemed to have it carried with him in a constantly replenishing supply. The 2 people who've been able to give testimony to that spirit in Les for the longest amount of time are his brothers, Billy and Stu. They tell me that to understand their brother, you've got to visit a long-since torn-down stadium on Wilmington Road that they called Chavez Levine, the site of countless competitive wiffle ball games from their childhood in South Euclid. The 3 of them and the bond they carried was the very best product of Les's childhood. He was the middle child of their mom, Beverly, their dad, Jack. As I understand it, Jack had grown up in the Huff neighborhood, the corner of 70th and Lexington, which together they agreed was the 700-foot home run marker for the Indians' former home at League Park at 66th and Lexington. Stu says it should be noted that the origin of Les in a sports-oriented broadcasting and production role came from games played inside the showers at Brush High School, where after actual hockey practice, the soap bar was reinvented as a puck to be kicked around. But what was most important was that every player arriving on the scene, sliding across the floor, mostly banging into the wall and occasionally wiping out, had Les providing color commentary. Multitasking as usual, since he also served as the league's commissioner, chief statistician, and the publisher of a Shower Hockey League newsletter. He somehow persuaded some adult at Brush to print copies of a daily paper he called Soap Chips. Billy wrote to me that there was a time Les may have dreamed of becoming an NFL official. This is because he remembers being at their Bubby's apartment when her 85-year-old neighbor, Mrs. Diamond, was standing in front of the TV at a key moment of a football game. Young Les threw his napkin on the floor, called her for illegal procedure, and had her ejected from Bubby's apartment. You notice lots of similarities in these stories. But one of the things I commented to Billy and Stu is that so many Les Levine life stories involve him convincing a whole lot of unlikely people to go along with him. Maybe he really was a voice of truth and reason. I don't know. But Billy says that his brother was the real deal. Stu remembers that their dad Jack had been in the Army with a guy named Maury Kono, who would later become the equipment manager for the Browns, which meant the three Levine boys got to spend an unusual amount of time dreaming of sports futures inside the Browns locker room. There are stories that go back decades involving the three Levine brothers have been balm to Les's wounds recently, including a 40-minute call that Jeremy and Jamie arranged the other night with their dad and their uncles, talking pretty much about nonsense. But knowing that their common roots, common values, and their brother's legacy was bigger than they had ever realized. After all, he is not only buried today with hundreds of broadcast tributes all over town, he is remembered for having covered every standing Cleveland franchise in one way or another, and a couple of lost ones. Cleveland Thunderbolts and Cleveland Crusaders come to mind. But the team to which he was most allied in life is no franchise. It's the kids who survive him today. Both the kids of his first marriage to Donna, Jeremy and his Melissa, Jamie and her Elon, and true children of his heart that Allison brought into their lives, Adam, Mara, and her Victor. Each of these kids wished that Les had more time on earth with them without the debilitating effects of Parkinson's and diabetes. But they are each deeply proud that Les lived and died with a fine mind, a loving affect, a fierce independence, and most of all, his dignity intact. He'd be proud, so proud to hear Adam, Mara, Jeremy, and Jamie speak of him. Jamie told me her dad was not just a talent because of his sports knowledge. He was a master communicator, master connector, with an incredible sense of humor, wit, and timing. She says that this informed her values, goals, and standards in her life. Jamie spoke about how many young broadcasters have said of Les that he saw in them who they could be and treated them with such aspirations foremost in mind. She feels the closest memories of her dad are the ones where he did that for her too. She knows exactly how much he cared for her and is proud of her because he told her. And he also sought to protect her and worried for her, most especially with incessant checking in about whether she was okay at any given moment. "Are you okay?" he'd ask. And she'd have to answer. She knew she didn't have to answer yes, because if she wasn't okay, Les wouldn't judge. He'd just want to help. And he died incredibly proud to be a father-in-law to Ilan and Melissa and Victor's father-in-law, satisfied that all of his and Allison's kids and kids-in-law and grandkids were and are okay. Les, they're going to be okay. Les was so saddened when extended family endured any losses. Most recently last year, this month, when Victor's father Simon passed away. And of course in 2009, when Jeremy's first wife Allie died of cancer. He grieved for the unfairnesses of these losses to his loved ones while simultaneously responding as a fighter, accepting Parkinson's having a more significant effect on his life. He got involved in agencies to improve the life of Parkinson's patients and their families, such as In Motion. He continued a proud relationship with the long-standing Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame. He even helped out all of us at Temple during the pandemic, when our Temple members were all cooped up and we wanted to keep their eyes hopeful on what was next for the Indians, Browns, and Cavs. Les happily joined 100 screens or more for a Zoom Q&A, all still writing for the Cleveland Jewish News and hosting more sports and less Levine. Les was a guy who simply showed up for his life. He counted his moments on this earth precious, like a person who knows that they are not unlimited. As a grandfather, he wouldn't miss soccer games or birthday parties or Saturday lunches with the grandkids as their Papa Les. His daughter-in-law Melissa posted the other night on Facebook that he loved his grandkids so much you could see it on his face and you could feel it in your soul. He'd call Vida and Noah his sweethearts and ask for special smoochies from Vida and hang out in the studio with Noah. Melissa added, most people know him for his love of sports, but the thing that stands out for me is his love of his kids and grandkids, acknowledging that she officially joined the Levine family almost 10 years ago. Melissa wrote, I'm not Jewish, and I couldn't care less about sports. But he welcomed me with open arms. That sensitivity and caring Melissa describes continued to exude from Les as he communicated it to people in his life, even as he grew weaker. Allison said that because of the coronavirus, the two of them wound up spending so much more time safely sheltered with one another, getting under one another's skin, and drawing closer in their affection and constant devotion. Mara told me the other day on a Zoom call how grateful she is, how life has turned out, the family memories that tie her mom and her brother and her with the Levine family for pretty much her entire life. She said about and to Les, thank you so much for making me laugh, helping me find honor, love, and acceptance, no matter what. In a few moments, Mara's daughters and Les and Allison's granddaughters, Leah and Mallory, will share some stories about Papa Les. And then Jeremy's got the job of batting cleanup in our order today. He is under explicit orders from his dad to keep his remarks funny. I'm under no such condition. So let me just take a few moments to share that there's something unique in the bonds that have been passed between Les and Jeremy, and ultimately to Noah as well. Father to son to grandson, like they did when Les passed the Torah to his son and to his grandson, Lador Vador, at Noah's bar mitzvah on May the 4th, 2019. It is important for me to acknowledge to you as a rabbi that in so many ways the Torah ends not on some happily ever after moment. No, the final words of the Torah are a eulogy to Moses, not just for his wondrous achievements, but for his humility and his unique stature. Jeremy can look back on the entire scope of his dad's life and say that his dad didn't just enjoy unique stature, he was a role model for humility. Jeremy said to me that in what could be a cutthroat business, his dad stood out for his belief in other people and demonstrating that he cared for them personally. Now, there is an incredible document Jeremy has assembled detailing his dad's illustrious career. You've really got to see it. The arc of a career that started with his first radio opportunity as a disc jockey in Jasper, Indiana, a metropolis of the Jewish community. That meant this OSU graduate with a very recent training in broadcasting school and a degree in political science would have to grab his family and move to Jasper in 1970 to launch what we celebrate today, a 5-decade career of commentary, and how come quickie laughs we will miss so much. Even the name by which he went in Jasper, Les Moore, was a reflection of his sense of humor and his awareness of feeling somewhat conspicuous as a Jewish kid out of the waters of Jewish Cleveland, until the sports director and sales manager job at WNIR in Akron would open up a couple years later. Jeremy's so grateful that in recent weeks he's been able to help his dad find peace and resolution. He and Jamie helped him make contact with people to whom Les wanted to connect. In addition to the time that Allison has spent allied to and advocating for Les, these last few weeks have made it possible for Les and Jeremy to uniquely reminisce about their shared memories, playing catch, Jeremy learning from his dad the proper way to shoot a free throw, how to hold a bat, how to throw a football, even on a postage stamp-sized lawn. Les coached ball games in which Jeremy and Adam were then, and in their own way, still today, remain teammates. Though their dad was traveling quite a lot, Jeremy and Jamie remember receiving pennants and snow globes from the towns he'd visit in so many states. They very often could listen to him the entire time he was away because his work was talking on the radio, even if sometimes he was responding abruptly to callers critical of him or the owners of Cleveland or the athletic directors calling shots for his beloved Buckeyes at OSU. The people he encountered professionally knew he was on the same winning team, cheering for Cleveland's big ones. The fact that he could watch the Browns go deeper into the playoffs than they have in a very long time. This brought a big smile to Les's face in recent weeks. Now, he knew that the Browns were a long shot to be playing tonight. But hey, who could blame Les Levine? If you look back on his life and the trajectory of his career and his personal life, almost everything happened against long shot odds. Allison can tell you. She remembers the two of them met first at a college party at OSU where Allison was in D Phi E and Les was a brother of mine in AE Pi. Although the two of them made lifelong friends in Columbus and are both very proud of the time they spent there, honestly, her first impression of Les was not a good one. She could never have guessed that through a guy's poker game back here in Cleveland, she would wind up back in the orbit of Les Levine. Their families would sit together at softball games of Adam and Jeremy, see one another at Lander Haven. They even tried to vacation together on a famed trip to the Nevele that included Les's not-so-talented management of hotel reservations, resulting in their families sleeping in their cars in a police station parking lot. I think it's safe to say, with tongue firmly placed in cheek, that at this stage of their relationship, Les had made an impression on Allison. But time passed, and after each of their marriages had ended, Les reached out to Allison and asked her out on a long shot, a date to the CSU basketball game. And the story of Les and Allison began, and who within the sound of my voice today or watching us on live stream doesn't remember seeing Allison and Les out on one another's arm, out with many friends, enjoying sports, yes, a common interest, but also good food and comedy and culture and religion and community and just hanging out together. For more than 20 years, the two of them bet the results of every NFL game. And Les would famously bet against Allison as to whether the next pitch from the mound would result in a foul ball or not. She would like it stipulated for the public record that he died with a gambling debt to her of approximately $1,000 worth of foul balls. But really, the saying is true. The house always wins. The life they built together. Theirs was a marriage whose fibers of loyalty, laughter, goodness, passion, and devotion were unequaled. Allison says, "No one doubts that he loved me just as much as I did him. and that the numerous people who've given testimony to that fact, that makes her more happy than any other tribute today. If you think about it, here again was a guy who could just talk his way into things that didn't seem possible for the rest of us mortals. Why? Because he wanted his life with Allison and each of their kids to be fun and funny and adventurous and relaxed. He once talked his way into an OSU game with Jeremy, even though he realized that he had bought fake tickets from the scalper outside. It was, though, of no surprise to Billy and Stu that when they went to meet up with Les and Jeremy at halftime, Les had somehow finagled his way into seeing the game anyway, watching the best band in the land dot the I in Ohio. If you'd ask him about what he did, who he did it with, he'd probably just laugh, because his shenanigans were pretty damn funny. Les loved comedy. He grew up listening to and memorizing the routines of Jack Benny. He remembered and then even modeled his own comic timing on how to use the medium of his voice, first over radio, then TV, in print, and even recently on Zoom, to make people think, make people smile, and make people never forget him. There is a sage whom I am fond of quoting in Jewish life. In recent days, I have learned that Les was also a fan of this unique source of Jewish wisdom, who was famous not only in our culture but in public life, unique like Les Levine for his stature, his humility, and his sense of humor. I'm speaking of the great rabbinic sage we know as Groucho Marx. Groucho Marx was once quoted as saying, "Each morning when I open my eyes, I say to myself, I, not events, have the power to make me happy or unhappy today. I can choose which it shall be. Yesterday is gone, tomorrow has not yet arrived. I have just one day, today, and I'm going to be happy in it. I have just one day, today." As far as this rabbi is concerned, Les Levine's life, his life with Allison, his relationship to kids, his grandkids, they bear witness to the idea Groucho was espousing. There are choices we make about how we live, with honor, with compassion, with intention. They are ours to make. We can choose happiness today. We can choose it again tomorrow. Nothing about the choices we make is buried on the day we are eulogized. To the contrary, on the day that our bodies are laid beneath the ground to their final rest, our essential humanity, and today Les Levine's sense of humanity, decency, dignity, his laughter, they can be lifted up, held high, and carried forward with pride. Let's do that. There's a lot to do. Even in these strange times, a lot to laugh at. Let's get busy making good things happen for people and for the communities we love. To this might be our greatest blessing. Amen. I'm honored to call on Les's granddaughters, Leah and Mallory, who will share some memories now of Papa Les. One moment, please. Gotta sit down.
Yesterday morning, I got to do a Zoom call with my cousins, Mela, 6 years old, Vita, 7, and Noah, 14. We got to talk about all of our favorite memories with Papa and share how special he was to all of us. First, I'm going to start with Papa's youngest grandchild, Mela. Since Mela doesn't live in Ohio, she had a Saturday ritual with Papa that she looked forward to every week. Some of her favorite memories with him were on FaceTime. However, when Mela did come to visit Papa and Gaga, she loved reading books with him. The last book that Papa read to Mela was The Littlest Levine, which is a book about Passover. She's always going to have that memory and miss those moments with him. The next grandchild is Vida. Vida loved having family dinners with Papa and seeing him at all of her birthday parties. She says that the thing she will miss the most is when Papa would ask her for a smoochie every time he would leave. But Jeremy told her that he would take Papa's place and ask her for a smoochie instead. Except now that has been going on a lot lately, and Vida thinks it might be a little too much. Lastly, Papa's only grandson, Noah. Noah's favorite memories with Papa were at Indians games. He loved going to the games and learning all about baseball, especially since he knew it was Papa's favorite sport. Noah really looked up to Papa. He taught him everything he knows about sports, and he got to go into the studio a few times to watch his show. Noah thought it was so cool that he got to sit in the broadcast room, and he even got to meet some of the guests that came on the show. But beyond all of that, Noah thinks that Papa gave the best hugs, and I can definitely confirm.
Papa was a very special person to not only me, but so many other people. A few memories that I have with Papa usually involved me flipping. Whether I was holding Grandma and Papa's hands and they would flip me, or if he was watching me compete in gymnastics. Papa has always been so supportive of all of his grandkids. With me, he loved watching me do gymnastics. My absolute favorite memory was when I was competing at districts my senior year of high school, and it was my last high school meet ever. I was competing on bars, and everyone was cheering for me. And after I stuck my landing, I turned around and saw my whole family crying, including Papa. This memory will forever hold a special place in my heart because my whole family was together during that special moment. I never really knew how famous my Papa actually was until now after receiving such overwhelming support from everyone all over. What I am going to miss the most are his Papa jokes, and if you've ever had at least one conversation with him, you know exactly what I'm talking about. After Grandma and Papa moved out to Twinsburg, closer to us, we were able to see them a lot more. I'm very happy that I have been able to make so many more memories with Papa over the last 5 years. The last month, being away from family, has been very difficult for me, knowing how sick Papa was. I am very happy that he is in a better place now and no longer in pain. I love my Papa very much, and I know he loved me too. Of all the speeches I have ever written, this is the most recent.
From the day that I was born, Papa and I were connected. My mom knew that she wanted to name me Leah, but she didn't want to do the common spelling of Leah. So they started circling through unique spellings, and that's when Papa came to the rescue. He said, "What about Leia, like the princess?" And my parents loved it. Papa has called me Princess Leah since I was a little girl, and it always made me feel so special. Every time someone compliments me on the spelling of my name, or if someone asks if I was named after Princess Leia from Star Wars, I say, yeah, actually I kind of was, and my grandpa came up with it. Not only did he help name me, but we also shared the same birth month. Mine is on the 7th of November, and his was on the 12th. So every year, we would have a dinner in between both of our birthdays to celebrate together. We would have a cake with both our names on it, and we would blow the candles out together. Then, of course, we would eat the cake with vanilla ice cream, which was Papa's favorite. And for anyone who knew Papa, they know that how much he loved his sweets. I don't think I've ever seen him turn down a cookie, even if Grandma was giving him one of her dirty looks. Growing up, my absolute favorite memories were at Grandma and Papa's house on Brompton. Mallory and I had so much fun playing hide and seek and making art projects in the basement. We spent Thanksgiving, birthdays, and every Jewish holiday at Grandma and Papa's, and it made me so happy. Especially because they always spoiled us. Like on Passover, when Papa would hide the afikomen, he would come up with the most impossible hiding spots. Sometimes we would be searching for what felt like hours, but eventually someone would give in and give us a clue. And then Papa would give money to all the grandkids, even if they weren't the ones who found it, because he wanted all of us to feel like winners. Although the last few years have been harder as Papa's Parkinson's progressed, he has never missed an important event in our lives. Whether it was a gymnastics meet, graduation, or a celebration dinner of any kind, Papa was there. Even if he was a few minutes late because he had to finish up his show, he never failed to make you feel special and tell you how proud he was of you. However, the memory of Papa that I will carry with me throughout the rest of my life is his unconditional love for my grandma. My family can be a little crazy at times, and Papa would get annoyed with us sometimes, especially when we were being obnoxious in public, but I know that he wouldn't want to change a thing because he had all the love in the world for us and would do just about anything for our family.
These words by Hannah Senish and music by David Zahabi. Eli, Eli, shelo yigamer leolam, ha'hol ve'hayam, rish rush, shel hamayim berak hashamayim tfilat adam ha'hol ve'hayam rishrush shel hamayim berak hashamayim tfilat adam. O God, my God, I pray that these things never end. The sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart, the sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart.
In this moment, I am really, really sad. And I'll tell you why. Rabbi, you stole my line. Of all the funerals I've ever been to, this is the most recent. Throughout my life, Dad never asked much of me. He made very few demands. He did not stand on ceremony or threaten me, or anybody else for that matter, in any way. He did, however, have one very specific request. An ultimatum he made to me a few years back, and he repeated to me again pretty recently. He said, someday you will speak at my funeral, and people will be sad. You better be funny. That's a tall order. Nobody's funnier than Les Levine. And that's part of the essence, right? The essence of Les. In every moment, every possible opportunity, he was interested in finding the next laugh. And he was really great at it. At the heart of this is making people feel good about human interactions, about our interactions together. Les was so good at this because of his authenticity. He was the same person on camera as he was off air. A dear lifelong friend of Les who cannot be here in person told me he woke up every day as Les Levine, couldn't figure out why it was working, so he just kept going. He essentially lived by the mantra, be kind. Be kind to people, because when it is all said and done, we will be judged by how many people are at our funeral. Looks like about 7. 7 people. Odd numbers are funnier. Welcome to Less Sports and More Levine. But not for the pandemic, Dad probably could have filled the Cleveland State Convocation Center to celebrate his life. Nonetheless, Dad was a showman until the very end. On Wednesday evening, with my sister Jamie nestled by his head on one side and me occupying the other side, my hand placed gently on his heart, Dad gave one last shameless plug to our employer, 92.3 The Fan, by passing peacefully at 9:23 p.m. on February 3rd, 2021. Now here we are, fittingly broadcasting to a worldwide audience on Super Bowl Sunday. Great show, Les. Every day, Dad. Even though this audience here is restricted by things out of our control, every meaningful facet of his life is represented in this room as an extension to all of you out there as well, who could not be with us here today, but who are with us in spirit. Family. Friends, including Ben Randall, along with his wife Nancy, who moved heaven and earth to get here today because they wouldn't be anywhere else. Fraternity brothers, longtime colleagues like Bud Shaw, and supporters of his work who may have started out as sponsors like Bernie Sokolowski, but each of them have evolved into something so much more meaningful to Les and to our family. And fans, we are all fans of Les Levine. To survive as a talent in the radio television business, Dad told me you not only need people who believe in you, but those people also need to be in a position to hire you. It's not enough to be likable. Steve Liverani, also here today with his wife Melissa, is one of those people. Steve was first responsible for the idea of taking a radio host and putting that program on television. At the time, people probably told you it was an insane idea. Les, through the years, would tell some version of a story where Steve called him up one day and said, "I'm hiring for a new TV show called More Sports and Les Levine. I think you should apply." Les is a lot of things to different people. Depending on when you entered his lifetime, To me, he is Dad. My coach and mentor, who taught me the game of baseball and taught me how to shoot free throws. The guy who put me through college, who loves his family deeply, and who almost without fail tried to attend every one of his kids' and grandkids' competitions or birthday parties. The guy who, by example, challenged me to be a better man. To me, he is someone who loved crossword puzzles and taught his daughter to appreciate the same. A master of his craft, yet someone who, despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary, still thinks the next pitch on a 3-2 count will be a foul ball. Someone who at one time was convinced, due to all of her travel, his daughter worked for the CIA. She didn't. Did you? The guy who stood up as the best man at my 2003 wedding in Hawaii, and the same guy who walked me home hand in hand from Lakewood Hospital the night my first wife, Allie, passed away. The guy who loves Three Musketeers and Utz potato chips. The guy who I can picture growing up marching around our living room to Script, Ohio, and he would not stop until he dotted the I. He was someone who loved to read, especially to his grandchildren. One, if not the last book, as you've already heard, that he read to Mela, coincidentally, was called The Littlest Levine. It was about the connection of a grandfather to his granddaughter and explaining why she was important in that moment, in a moment where she felt left out or underserved. And I think that's representative of a lot of our interactions with him. Saturday afternoons and countless other occasions became lunch or dinner with Papa Les. My wife Melissa has said, he's done countless celebrity interviews in his life, but his best interviews were when he was present with his grandkids. I think about someone who was constantly worried about his kids. His standard phone greeting was, "Is everything okay?" His in-person goodbye was, "Call me when you get there." He just wanted to know we were okay, and we don't have to ask, how come? It is because Les is a kind soul. He was sensitive, thoughtful, witty, loving, and he will be missed. I like to imagine him now and moving forward, dotting the big I in the sky anytime he wants, and at this moment getting ready for spring training. Because every spring, hope rings eternal. 20 years ago, I was in a band called Planet 10. The drummer had lost his father, and I was over his house one night when he played something on a guitar he was working out. I quickly penned lyrics that evolved into a song reminiscent about loss, and we called it Peace of Mind. Only now do I realize at the time I wrote that thinking what it would be like for me to lose my own dad. And this is the only way I know how to express it. With sentimental overtone satisfied, gripping my handle in a pent-up riot. Now you know the lessons to overcome. Rode my feelings in a wave of light. Does it make sense to put up a fight? Oh no, hold tight. Bending my knees, holding my breath. The quiet little notion started making sense. Pick up all the pieces after we fall. All my reasons are pantomimes. Burned out bridges get you every time. Oh, ebb tide. Though the darkest hours may reveal healing powers, I'll still miss you when you're gone. It feels so good to me. It feels so good to be. It feels so good to be alive. Son, you know it's time to be a man. Dad, I'll try and do the best I can. We've learned our lessons. It'll serve us well. All my grief will come together, holding down the line. Though the darkest hours may reveal healing powers, we'll still miss you when you're gone. It feels so good to me. It feels so good to be. It feels so good to be alive. I'll find my peace of mind. I'll find my peace of mind. We'll find our peace of mind. We'll find our peace of mind. Thanks, Dad. That's a mic drop. Thanks for that one.
I invite you to please rise for the memorial prayer.
El male rachamim shocheina bamromim hametzei menucha nechona tachat kanafecha shechina עם הקדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים את נשמת ליוואי בן יעקב שחלך לעולמו בעל הרחמים יסתירהו בסתר כנפיו לעולמים ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו אדוני הוא נחלתו וינוח בשלום על משכבו ונאמר Amen.
May the source of life, the fountain of all being, open our hearts to compassion and our eyes to wisdom, that we might glimpse in perfect peace and sadness the way of all things. May Les's memory be for us a blessing, and may we never let the light of his love grow dim in our hearts. May we remember all of his worthy and righteous deeds, that his memory be forever bound up in the bond of life. God is our source and our destination, our beginning and our end. May Les's passing awake us to this truth, that the bond of love we shared and share not be severed in sorrow. May he rest in peace. Together we say, Amen.